Hi, I'm Judge Chris Stride. I'm visiting today with Lake County Veterans and Family Services founder and president, Paul Baffico. Paul, how are you?
Thanks. I'm fine, Chris. Thank you.
We had a wonderful experience this past September. I was honored to participate in the first annual Lake County Veterans and Family Services Ruck March. Just what is a Ruck March, quickly?
It's an endurance march that the individual invests themselves in that they carry a pack and they walk a certain distance, and it's done to symbolize the agony of accomplishment. And in this particular case, it was also to bring the public's attention to the fact that we have far too many veteran suicides, as high as 22 per day, and now it's dropped a little bit to 20. And so they pack 22 pounds in the pack to symbolize the 22 deaths per day, and they walk 22 kilometers.
And this was the first ever Ruck March for your organization, is that correct?
Correct. It was the first.
And the march itself, I was excited on the calendar. It seemed like September would be a perfect, cool time of the year to go on a Ruck March, but instead we got a little bit of a curveball by Mother Nature, didn't we?
Correct, yeah.
All right, talk a little bit about that day.
97 degrees, and a lot hotter than we thought it was going to be.
Right.
But we did have 122 people turn out, and we had 86 complete it, which we were astounded. Now, we did take care of people as much as we could with water stations and crossing guards, but that's a lot to do.
And overall, when you look back on the events, would you consider this first Ruck March a success?
Absolutely. It was a terrific spiritual success for the participants as well as people that were supporting us.
Your organization itself has so many different programs and vehicles to address the many complex needs of our fighting men and women coming back from our current conflicts and our older conflicts. If you could talk a little bit about that.
Our main objective is to connect veterans and their family members with each other, as well as with the benefits and the resources that they earned and deserve. Many veterans, and I'm one of them, when they come back, particularly from an overseas deployment in combat, they really do not want to engage. They want to be left alone. And with that comes isolation, depression, not necessarily PTSD, but your life is very different than it was. And so we try to teach people, both civilians and their families, as well as the service members, that this isn't just reintegration, it's a matter of renewing your life from a different perspective. And that is all centered on trust. We build trust with the individual, because most vets, when they come back, have a hard time with trust. They have trusted the guy next to them or the gal next to them with their life, and they never experience that again.
So one of the things I think is particularly powerful that your organization does is the peer services connection that you're able to make with trained, certified peer specialists with the vets in the community. Talk a little bit about that if you could.
Right, we are, and thank you for bringing that up. Our peer support specialists are professionally trained, and they're certified by the state of Illinois and the federal government to be the advocate for the veteran, the service member, whatever their needs are, the family member. And we have a tagline that says, help from those who've been there. So all of us who are certified peers, that makes our organization unique. We are all combat veterans. We are all in recovery. So we can say, I understand what your addiction is like. I understand what your difficulty is like with the civilian population. You can trust me because I've walked this path before. That is hugely different than many other organizations. Not that they're not well-meaning, they are well-meaning, but you really need to walk in somebody else's shoes in these situations.
Yeah, that commonality of experience, I imagine, goes a long way in building that trust that's so critical.
It does, and that trust is envied by family members and others who have been close to the individual for a long time, they can't understand. Why will he talk to her but won't talk to me about it? And that's inexplicable at the moment. I mean, it could take a long time, but it's kind of inexplicable because you trust them.
Sure. Now, one of the things that I think is also brilliant about what you've recognized, that your organization has recognized, is it's not just the veteran, it's the veteran's family.
Absolutely.
And there's a real change of life for the family, just like the vet. And talk a little bit about some of the programming you have available for family members.
We have a group run by a social worker, very professional, experienced social worker called Service Connections. It's for the family members who are having difficulty understanding why their significant other, whether it's son, daughter, husband, doesn't relate to them the same way that they did before, and has a difficult time understanding that person is a different person. It's not the same one. So you have this polarity that needs to be not adjusted, but needs to be understood. And the fact that family is so important. I am an example of that. I was an executive in a $44 billion company, extremely successful, and I refused to admit I needed any help until my wife said, "You need to get some help." And she suggested I go to the VA after 37 years of avoiding the place. If it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be in recovery. And that is very common. It's more common than someone themselves saying, "I need help." Because in the military, you're trained never to say that. If you're fit, you work. If you're unfit, go get fixed and come back. And that stays with you for the rest of your life.
Well, thank you for modeling that for our veterans who are struggling, because I think there's so many that feel that way. And they're so reluctant. You know, they're a prideful group, right? And they want to fix their own problems, and sometimes you just can't.
And you see that all the time in your court.
Yeah, we do, and it's been a real eye-opener for me as somebody who didn't serve. But I think we're in a different time in our country and I think you'd agree with this, where we're recognizing those struggles are real.
Yes.
And they need to be addressed. And our servicemen and women that are returning from the Middle East or wherever are certainly entitled to that help. And I know your organization provides it. I'm very pleased and honored to be a part of Veterans Court, where we try to do the same thing through the VA. It's a great community of people, and they deserve our support, our respect, and our help. Paul, thank you, and thanks for your courage and sharing your story. This has been Judge Chris Stride and Lake County Veterans and Family Services President and Founder Paul Baffico visiting about the 2017 Ruck March. And before I let you go, Paul, there's going to be a 2018 Ruck March.
Yes, sir. We just approved the route yesterday. So we're in the process now of drawing the permits from the different townships and the supporting entities that have to be there, and we expect that this will be double what it was in 2017.
If people are interested in either your organization or becoming a part of the Ruck March this upcoming fall, how can they contact you?
Our drop-in center is in Grays Lake at 100 South Atkinson, or they can call us at 847-986-4622. We're happy to talk to anybody.
And you're on the web as well, correct?
Yes, sir.
And what is that web address?
www.lakevetsfound.org.
Very well. Thanks again. It's been nice to visit with you.